The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't announce itself with a brass band. It creeps up on you like a bad hangover, starting with little things that don't quite add up, like finding a Rolex Submariner on your nightstand when your wife claims she's never seen it before. My name is Adrian Falk, and I'm a structural engineer who should have paid more attention to the cracks forming in my own foundation. At 42, I thought I had life figured out. Good job designing office buildings that won't collapse, decent house in suburban Charlotte, and a wife who still looked good in the little black dress she wore to company parties. Turns out I was about as wrong as an architect who forgets to include bathrooms. Janelle came home late again last Tuesday, her heels clicking against our hardwood floors, like a countdown timer I didn't know was running. She smelled like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine, and her lipstick had that freshly applied look that screamed damage control. "How was the client dinner?" I asked from the couch, not looking up from my laptop where I was reviewing blueprints for a new medical center. "Oh, Martin," she said, dropping her purse with theatrical exhaustion, "always wants to discuss every tiny detail." We were at Fahrenheit until almost 11. Martin Kessler, her boss at Premier Events Management, the kind of guy who wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment and drove a BMW that he probably polished with $100 bills. I'd met him at exactly 3 company functions, and each time he'd given me the kind of handshake that was either overcompensating for something or practicing for a grip strength competition. "Must have been some important details," I said, finally looking at her. "Your dress is wrinkled in all the wrong places." She laughed, but it sounded like glass breaking in slow motion. "You're so observant, honey. That's why I married an engineer." That's when I noticed the watch. It was sitting on her nightstand when I went to bed, catching the light from our bedside lamp like a guilty conscience. A Rolex Submariner, the kind of timepiece that costs more than most people's cars, the kind Martin Kessler would wear. "Whose watch is this?" I called to the bathroom, where Janelle was doing whatever mysterious things women do with 17 different skincare products. "Oh, that?" Her voice had that carefully casual tone people use when they're lying about something important. "One of Martin's clients left it at the restaurant. Martin asked me to hold on to it until he could return it." Right, because the logical chain of custody for a $20,000 watch obviously runs from client to boss's employee, to boss's employee's bedroom nightstand. Made perfect sense, about as much sense as designing a skyscraper with the foundation on the top floor. I picked up the watch. It was warm. Not sitting in a restaurant for 3 hours. Warm. Just came off someone's wrist. Warm. "Adrian?" Janelle appeared in the bathroom doorway, face cream making her look like she was wearing a mask, which, as it turned out, was more accurate than I knew at the time. "You're not going to make a big deal about this, are you?" The thing about being an engineer is that you learn to trust math, physics, and evidence over emotions and explanations. The evidence was telling me a story that my emotions didn't want to hear. But numbers don't lie even when wives do. "No big deal," I said, setting the watch back down. "Just curious about the logistics." She smiled, relieved. "You worry too much. It's just business." Business. Right. The next morning, I did what any rational, suspicious husband would do. I went to Home Depot and bought a small security camera disguised as a phone charger. $29.99 for peace of mind or evidence of betrayal. Either way, it seemed like a bargain. Installing it took about 5 minutes. I positioned it on the dresser with a clear view of our bed, connected it to our Wi-Fi, and downloaded the app that would let me monitor our bedroom from anywhere. As I tested the camera angle, I couldn't help but think about how this was either the smartest or stupidest thing I'd ever done. Probably both. That afternoon, I got a text from Janelle. "Working late again? Don't wait up. Love you. Love you." 2 words that used to make me smile, and now felt like a punch to the gut. I spent the evening reviewing structural plans and trying not to check the camera app every 5 minutes. Around 10 o'clock, I gave up pretending to work and opened the live feed on my phone. Our bedroom was dark and empty. The red numbers on our alarm clock glowed 10:47 p.m. I was being paranoid, I told myself. Janelle was probably actually working late, and I was turning into one of those suspicious husbands who... The bedroom light flicked on. Janelle walked in, but she wasn't alone. Martin Kessler followed her, his hand on the small of her back in a way that was definitely not professional. They were laughing about something, comfortable in a way that spoke of practice and familiarity. I watched my wife of 8 years sit on our bed and pat the space next to her. I watched Martin sit down and immediately start kissing her neck. I watched her reach for his wrist and remove the same Rolex that had been on our nightstand the night before. The betrayal hit me like a structural failure, sudden, devastating, and completely changing the landscape of everything I thought I knew. But here's the thing about being an engineer. When something breaks, you don't just cry about it. You figure out why it broke, and then you figure out how to fix it. Or in this case, how to break everything else. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my home office, staring at the frozen screenshot on my phone that showed my wife and her boss in a position that definitely wasn't covered in any employee handbook I'd ever read. The timestamp read 11:23 p.m. The expression on Janelle's face was one I hadn't seen in years. Genuine happiness, the kind she used to reserve for me back when we were dating, and the world was full of possibilities instead of mortgage payments and routine. The funny thing about betrayal is how it makes you reassess everything. Every late night, every new piece of lingerie that never made an appearance in our bedroom. Every time she'd seemed distracted during dinner, the signs had been there. I'd just been too trusting or too stupid to read them. By morning, I had a plan. Not the kind of plan that involved baseball bats or dramatic confrontations or any of that Hollywood nonsense. I'm an engineer, which means I solve problems methodically, with evidence and precision. If Janelle wanted to play games, she was about to discover that I was very good at reading the rules. First step, documentation. I spent my lunch break at Staples, buying a small external hard drive and a notebook. That evening, while Janelle was at her yoga class, which according to her gym's schedule didn't actually exist on Wednesdays, I downloaded every video file from the camera and created a detailed log. Entry number 1. Tuesday, October 15th, 11:23 p.m. to 12:47 a.m. Subjects: J. Falk, M. Kessler. Duration: 84 minutes. Activities: adultery, various positions, extensive use of marital bed. Writing it down in clinical terms made it easier to handle, like reducing a personal catastrophe to engineering specifications. Load-bearing walls can only handle so much stress before they fail, and apparently, so could marriages. My phone buzzed with a text from Aiden Morrison, my work buddy, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Beer tonight? Sarah's working late and I'm bored. Perfect timing. I needed someone to talk to, and Aiden was the kind of guy who'd listen without judgment and offer practical advice instead of empty platitudes. We met at Murphy's Pub, a dive bar near our office that served decent burgers and didn't ask questions when engineers needed to drink away their problems. Aiden was already there, nursing a Guinness and scrolling through his phone. "You look like someone ran over your dog," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. "Worse, someone's been running over my wife." I signaled the waitress for a beer. Metaphorically speaking. Aiden's eyebrows shot up. "Janelle, are you serious?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot. His expression went from skeptical to shocked to angry in about 3 seconds. "Holy shit, Adrian, that's Martin, right? Her boss?" "The very same. Apparently they've been discussing more than event planning." "What are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? The old Adrian would have confronted her immediately, demanded explanations, probably ended up in some tearful scene where she'd promise it meant nothing and beg for forgiveness. But the old Adrian hadn't been betrayed by the person he trusted most in the world. "I'm going to destroy them," I said calmly, taking a long drink of my beer. "Both of them. Systematically, thoroughly, and completely legally." Aiden stared at me. "That doesn't sound like you." The old me trusted people. The new me trusts evidence. I opened my notebook and showed him my documentation. "Martin's married, right? To that blonde woman from the Christmas party?" Lisa, yeah, she's actually pretty cool. Works in marketing for some pharmaceutical company. Aiden paused. You're not thinking of, oh, I'm absolutely thinking of it. Lisa Kessler deserves to know what her husband does during his late client meetings. Adrian, think about this. Once you go down this road, there's no going back? Good. I don't want to go back. Back is where I was stupid enough to believe that my wife working late 3 nights a week was actually about work. I spent the next hour laying out my plan for Aiden. It was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its scope. First, I'd gather more evidence. Not just the affair, but everything. Financial records, communication patterns, witnesses. Then I'd start dismantling their lives piece by piece, using their own actions against them. What about Janelle's friend Sherry? Aiden asked. They're always together. She might know something. Sherry Winters. Janelle's best friend since college, a woman whose idea of discretion was waiting until the second glass of wine before spilling everyone's secrets. If anyone knew about the affair, it would be her. I'll handle Sherry, I said. She's got a mouth bigger than the Grand Canyon and half the sense. Give her enough rope and she'll hang herself. The opportunity came sooner than expected. That Friday night, Janelle announced she was having a girls' night with Sherry at our house. Perfect. I made a show of going to my office to work on blueprints, but I left my laptop recording app running in the kitchen, where they'd inevitably end up gossiping over wine. By 10 o'clock, they were 3 bottles deep and talking loud enough to wake the neighbors. I sat in my office listening through my wireless earbuds as they dissected every detail of their lives. So how are things with Martin? Sherry asked, her voice slurred with wine and conspiracy. God, Sherry, he's incredible. The things he does with his hands. Janelle giggled like a teenager. Adrian's so focused on his work, he barely notices I exist anymore. Martin makes me feel alive again. What if Adrian finds out? He won't. He's too trusting, too predictable. Besides, Martin's thinking about leaving Lisa anyway. He says I'm the best thing that's ever happened to him. Right. Because married men never lie to their mistresses about leaving their wives. That's about as reliable as building a house on quicksand. Just be careful, Sherry said. I mean, I love the drama, but Adrian's not stupid. He's an engineer. They notice details. Adrian notices structural flaws in buildings, not relationship flaws in marriages. Trust me, I've got this handled. Famous last words. I saved the recording and started planning phase 2 of my revenge. Janelle thought she had everything handled. She was about to learn the difference between managing events and managing consequences. The next morning, I created an anonymous email account and sent Lisa Kessler a simple message. Your husband is having an affair with his employee, Janelle Falk. Thought you should know. A concerned friend. I included the timestamp screenshot as proof. Then, I sat back and waited for the explosion. Lisa Kessler called me at work on Monday morning. I recognized her voice from the Christmas party, though it was considerably less friendly than I remembered. Adrian, this is Lisa Kessler, Martin's wife. We need to talk. About what? I kept my voice neutral, professional. An engineer discussing technical specifications. About the photograph someone sent me of my husband and your wife in what appears to be your bedroom. Direct. I liked that. I see. And what would you like to discuss about it? Are you seriously going to pretend you don't know what's happening? I know exactly what's happening, Lisa. The question is, what do you want to do about it? There was a long pause. Meet me for coffee. 1 hour. The Starbucks on Providence Road. She hung up before I could respond. Lisa Kessler was waiting for me when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a large coffee and the kind of expression that could melt steel. She was prettier than I remembered from the Christmas party, with short blonde hair and intelligent blue eyes that were currently focused on me like laser sights. Show me everything, she said without preamble. I slid my tablet across the table. She watched the video footage with the kind of clinical detachment I'd expect from a surgeon or a sniper. When it finished, she closed the tablet and looked at me. How long has this been going on? I'm not sure. I only discovered it last week. But based on some things I've overheard, probably months. Months! She said it like she was tasting something bitter. Martin told me he was working late on the Henderson account. Big client, lots of pressure, needed his full attention. Apparently, Janelle has been getting his full attention. Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you know what the really pathetic part is? I suspected something was wrong. He's been different lately, distracted, secretive, buying new clothes. But I told myself I was being paranoid. Trust but verify, I said. Ronald Reagan was talking about nuclear disarmament, but it applies to marriage too. What's your plan? Excuse me? Don't play dumb with me, Adrian. You're an engineer. You don't just discover problems, you solve them. So what's your plan? I studied her face. Lisa Kessler was angry, but it was the cold, calculating kind of anger that gets things done. The kind of anger that could be very useful to someone planning a comprehensive revenge campaign. I want to destroy them both, I said quietly. Professionally, socially, financially. I want them to lose everything that matters to them, the same way they destroyed everything that mattered to me. Good, she said. I'm in. We spent the next 2 hours planning their downfall like we were coordinating a military campaign. Lisa knew Martin's weaknesses, his professional vulnerabilities, his social connections. I had evidence and technical skills. Together, we were a formidable team. Martin's up for partner at his firm, Lisa told me. The decision gets made next month. Any hint of scandal, and he's done. They're very conservative about that kind of thing. What about Janelle's company? Premier Events Management has a strict no fraternization policy. If HR finds out about this, they'll both be fired. Then we make sure HR finds out. Lisa smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. I like the way you think. Phase 1 was simple: documentation and distribution. I spent that evening creating a comprehensive file of evidence: video footage, photographs, audio recordings, timeline analysis. Everything organized and cross-referenced like an engineering report. Phase 2 was more creative. Lisa had access to Martin's computer and phone. She installed monitoring software that would track his communications and location. If they were meeting somewhere besides my house, we'd know about it. Phase 3 was the nuclear option: simultaneous exposure to their employers, their social circle, and their families. Maximum damage, minimum warning. But first, we needed more ammunition. The opportunity came Thursday night. Janelle announced another late client meeting with Martin. This time, I was ready. I'd installed additional cameras in our living room and kitchen, all connected to cloud storage that Janelle couldn't access or delete. They arrived at our house around 8 p.m., laughing and touching each other like teenagers. I watched from my office as they opened a bottle of my wine, a Cabernet Sauvignon I'd been saving for our anniversary, and settled onto my couch. Adrian's working late again, Janelle said, curling up against Martin's side. Sometimes I think he loves those buildings more than he loves me. His loss, Martin replied, kissing her neck. When we're together, you won't have to worry about being ignored. When we're together? Martin, you keep saying that, but I'm leaving Lisa. After I make partner, I'll have enough financial security to handle the divorce. We can be together openly. Lies upon lies upon lies. Lisa had already told me that Martin had no intention of leaving her. He'd been planning to buy her a new car for Christmas. Hardly the action of a man preparing for divorce. I recorded everything, saved everything, documented everything. By the time they left at midnight, I had enough evidence to bury them both so deep they'd need archaeological equipment to dig their way out. Friday morning, I sent anonymous packages to Premier Events Management's HR department and Martin's law firm. Each package contained printed screenshots, video files on USB drives, and detailed timelines. I also sent copies to the partners at Martin's firm and the senior management at Janelle's company. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. The explosion started around 10 a.m. Janelle called me, her voice panicked and shrill. Adrian, something's happening at work. HR wants to see me immediately. They're asking questions about Martin, and they seem to know things they shouldn't know. What kind of things? I asked, putting just the right amount of concern in my voice. Personal things, about our relationship. Someone's been watching us, Adrian. Someone knows about us. Us. Not me and Martin or the affair. Just us, like they were the victims in this situation. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, I said. Maybe someone saw you two having a business dinner and misinterpreted it. No, Adrian, you don't understand. They have photographs, video, they know everything. Everything about what, Janelle? Silence. Long, guilty silence. I'll call you back, she finally said and hung up. 20 minutes later, Lisa texted me. Martin just got suspended pending investigation. He's freaking out. Perfect. The dominoes were falling exactly as planned. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The beauty of systematic revenge is that once you set the wheels in motion, momentum takes care of the rest. By Friday afternoon, both Janelle and Martin were suspended from their jobs, pending internal investigations. By Monday, the gossip had spread through their professional networks like wildfire through dry timber. Janelle came home that evening looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her usually perfect makeup was smeared, her designer dress wrinkled, and her hands were shaking as she poured herself a large glass of wine. We need to talk, she said. About what? I looked up from my laptop where I was pretending to review building specifications while actually monitoring the security cameras I'd installed throughout our house. About us, about our marriage, about mistakes I might have made. Mistakes. Like adultery was equivalent to forgetting to take out the trash or leaving dirty dishes in the sink. What kind of mistakes? I kept my voice level, curious rather than accusatory. She sat down across from me, tears starting to form in her eyes. Adrian, I've been confused lately, feeling disconnected from you, from our life together. And Martin was there, and he listened to me, and things happened that shouldn't have happened. Things? I had an affair. The words came out in a rush, like she was ripping off a bandage. With Martin, it's been going on for 3 months, but it's over now, and I want to fix this. I want to fix us. I closed my laptop and looked at her, really looked at her. 8 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The practiced expression of remorse, the calculated tears, the way she was positioning herself as the victim of her own poor judgment. How did your employers find out? I asked. Someone's been watching us, taking pictures, recording us. The HR manager showed me video of us in restaurants, in hotel rooms, even. She stopped, her face flushing. Even where? Even here, in our house, in our bedroom. I let the silence stretch between us, watching her squirm under the weight of her own guilt. Who would do something like that? I finally asked. I don't know. Someone who wants to hurt us. Maybe someone from Martin's firm who doesn't want him to make partner. Or maybe... She looked at me suspiciously. Adrian, you wouldn't what? Wouldn't spy on your own wife. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water while I considered my response. The old Adrian would have confessed everything, would have turned this into an emotional confrontation about trust and betrayal. The new Adrian was smarter than that. Janelle, I said, returning to the living room, if I had evidence of you cheating on me, do you really think I'd be sitting here having a calm conversation about it? She visibly relaxed. No, you're right. You'd be screaming at me or throwing things or I don't know what you'd do, but not this. So what happens now? Now we work on our marriage. I'll find a new job, somewhere far away from Martin. We'll go to counseling. We'll rebuild what I damaged. I nodded slowly like I was considering it. And Martin? What happens to him? I don't care about Martin. I care about you, about us. Another lie. I'd heard her tell Sherry just 3 days ago that she was in love with Martin, that she was planning to leave me as soon as he left Lisa. But I didn't call her on it. Not yet. I need time to think, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. That night, after Janelle went to bed, I met Lisa at an all-night diner across town. She looked as grimly satisfied as I felt. Martin tried to blame everything on Janelle, she told me. Said she seduced him, that she was obsessed with him, that he was trying to end it, but she wouldn't let him. Classy. He also hired a lawyer. Apparently, he thinks he can fight the suspension and keep his job. Can he? Not with what we have. I sent additional evidence to the partners today. Financial records showing he used company credit cards for hotel rooms, restaurant bills that don't match any legitimate client meetings, phone records proving he lied about his whereabouts. Lisa was thorough. I appreciated that in a co-conspirator. What about the divorce? I asked. Filed this morning. I'm asking for everything. The house, his retirement accounts, alimony, the works. My lawyer says adultery gives me significant leverage in North Carolina. And Janelle? What about her? She asked me to forgive her. Wants to work on our marriage? Lisa laughed bitterly. Let me guess. She suddenly realized what a mistake she made, and Martin means nothing to her now. Something like that. Are you buying it? Not for a second. But I'm going to let her think I am, at least for a while. I'm not done with either of them yet. The next phase of my plan required patience and careful timing. I started by freezing our joint accounts and transferring half the money to a separate account in my name only. Perfectly legal. It was my money too, after all. I also changed the passwords on all our shared credit cards and removed Janelle as an authorized user. Then I called a divorce lawyer. Margaret Chen was a partner at one of Charlotte's most prestigious family law firms, with a reputation for being both brilliant and ruthless. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally taking notes on a legal pad. You have excellent documentation, she said when I finished. The video evidence alone would be enough to establish adultery, but the financial records and witness statements make your case bulletproof. What kind of settlement can I expect? In North Carolina, adultery affects both property division and alimony. Given that your wife's affair caused the breakdown of the marriage, and given your respective incomes, I'd say you're looking at keeping the house, most of your retirement savings, and no alimony obligations. She'll be lucky to walk away with her personal belongings. How long will it take? If she contests it, 6 months to a year. If she doesn't, we could have you divorced in 60 days. She'll contest it. Most cheating spouses do, especially when they realize how much their affair is going to cost them. I signed the retainer agreement and left Margaret's office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The legal machinery was now in motion, grinding slowly but inevitably toward justice. But I still had one more surprise for Janelle and Martin. That weekend was the annual Autumn Charity Gala, Charlotte's biggest social event of the year. Martin and Lisa had tickets, as did Janelle and I. Under normal circumstances, we'd all be there pretending to care about whatever cause was being celebrated this year, while networking and showing off expensive clothes. This year was going to be different. I spent Saturday afternoon preparing my final move. Using the evidence I'd gathered and Lisa's inside knowledge of Martin's schedule, I created a comprehensive presentation, a PowerPoint slideshow that detailed the entire affair with timestamps, photographs, and financial records. Everything documented and cross-referenced, like the engineering reports I created for work. The gala was held at the Ritz-Carlton. 500 of Charlotte's most prominent citizens gathered in the ballroom to eat overpriced chicken and bid on silent auction items they didn't need. Janelle wore a black evening gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she looked beautiful in the way that sharp objects are beautiful, elegant and dangerous. You look handsome tonight, she said as we walked into the hotel. I've missed this. Us together, like we used to be. I replied, scanning the crowd for Lisa and Martin. I spotted them near the bar. Martin was wearing a tuxedo that fit him like it was made by angels, and Lisa was stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my car. They were standing close together, but I could see the tension between them. The careful distance, the forced smiles, the way they avoided looking directly at each other. There's Martin, Janelle said, her voice carefully neutral. Should we say hello? Why not? We walked over to them, and I watched Janelle's face as she saw Martin for the first time since their world had exploded. Her expression was carefully controlled, but I caught the flash of longing in her eyes, the way her breathing changed when she looked at him. Adrian, Janelle, Lisa said smoothly. How nice to see you both. Lisa, you look incredible, Janelle replied. That dress is stunning. Thank you. Martin picked it out. Lisa's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. He has excellent taste, in beautiful things. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, all polite surface tension and hidden meanings. Then the lights dimmed and the evening's program began. I waited until the auction was in full swing, when everyone was focused on the stage and the auctioneer's rapid-fire patter. Then I slipped away from our table and made my way to the hotel's business center. It took me exactly 12 minutes to hack into the hotel's audiovisual system, a skill I'd learned during my college years when I'd worked part-time for the campus IT department. The Ritz-Carlton had excellent security for their guests' personal information, but their presentation equipment was surprisingly vulnerable. I uploaded my slideshow to their system and returned to the ballroom just as the auction was ending. The evening's keynote speaker, some local politician, was being introduced when the screens around the room suddenly changed. Instead of the speaker's prepared remarks, 500 of Charlotte's elite were now looking at a high-definition photograph of Martin Kessler and Janelle Falk in a compromising position, complete with timestamp and location data. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Gasps, shocked murmurs, the sound of champagne glasses hitting the floor. I watched Janelle's face drain of all color as she realized what was happening. Martin looked like he was about to have a heart attack. The slideshow continued for exactly 3 minutes, long enough for everyone to understand what they were seeing, short enough that hotel security couldn't stop it before the damage was done. Photographs, financial records, hotel receipts, text message screenshots. Their entire affair laid out in forensic detail for Charlotte's social elite to examine and judge. When it ended and the screens went dark, the ballroom was silent except for the sound of 500 people trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Then, the whispers started. I looked around our table. Janelle was staring at her hands, tears streaming down her face. Martin had disappeared entirely, probably fled to the men's room or the parking garage. Lisa was sitting calmly, sipping her wine like nothing had happened. She caught my eye and raised her glass slightly, a toast to a job well done. "I think we should go," I said to Janelle. She nodded without speaking and followed me out of the ballroom. Behind us, the whispers were growing louder, turning into conversations, turning into the kind of gossip that would spread through Charlotte's social circles like wildfire. By morning, everyone would know. Bye.